Kia ora koutou katoa, te whānau no mai hara mai ki te ao Hākinakina, your sports show right here on your Tribal Pulse, te Korimako o Taranaki, 94.8 FM and 98.4 FM. Brought up in a sporty whānau, she has sport in her DNA, but there's one sport in particular that she has really flourished in, and that is netball. She has been hugely impactful in the growth of netball, not only here in Taranaki, but within the proud nation of Tonga also. And we are really grateful to have her here on our show. Jaqua Pori Makea Simpson, no mai hara mai.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Good to have you on the show. Really looking forward to catching up and having a kōrero with you today. So thanks for being here. But before we get started, ko wai koe no he koe, a bit about yourself and where you're from.
So, born and raised in Waitara for the most part. I lived in Australia for nearly 30 years, but so life has done a complete circle for me. And I'm back in Waitara. I moved home 7 years ago now. My brother actually was on the show recently, and he talked about being in Cook Street, but that was a little bit before my time. So, no, for the most part for me, it was down at Waitara Beach and at Waitara Central. So here we are, back again.
Awesome, awesome. Oh, Waitara, plenty of awesome, amazing sportsmen and women from out there. So when you were young, growing up in Waitara, what sports did you play as a young girl? I heard rugby league and softball might have been a few of the other sports that you played.
Oh, look, I don't think I had a choice because I'm the youngest of 4 children and had 3 older brothers, and our dad was obviously from rugby league as well. So I think I got thrown in there in the days where it was uncommon to have a young girl on the football field. But it was, something we played in the backyard. Netball was a part of my life, obviously, especially being a female-dominated sport. I played representative netball for Taranaki, so it's curious that I'm now back here working for them, and played representative softball for Taranaki as well. So when I moved to Australia, I actually used netball to find a way to meet people, played state league netball there and state softball as well. But now back into netball professionally, and it's served me well, and it's brought a lot to my life. I enjoy it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So earlier you mentioned your brothers, so being the youngest of 4 and having 3 brothers must have been pretty full on for you. I'm sure that helped toughen you up, that's for sure. I heard there might have been a bit of pitching going on in the backyard for your softball days.
Yeah, I was that moaning sister that always wanted to join in. Yeah, I was pretty well protected by my dad, though, being the youngest and the only girl. One particular incident, I remember I was moaning so much. My brothers were practicing and I wanted to join in. So I'm pretty sure it was deliberate. And Pinna, actually, who was on the show previously, pitched a ball straight at my face, broke my nose, blood everywhere. My mother was not impressed because I had to go to a ballet competition the next day. But, I wouldn't have changed it. I love being raised with my brothers. And it's special. I think sport can really add to your childhood, and I loved it.
Yeah, it sure does. Sports is an amazing vehicle for rangatahi in terms of their growth throughout life. So you mentioned netball. It's obviously a real big passion of yours. Now, I heard your mum used to coach Maris and Te Atiawa netball. Is this where the passion for netball comes from? And, what is it about the sport that you love?
Oh, yeah, we were introduced to netball from a young age. What I remember about Mum playing netball up at the Waitara netball courts, the only thing I actually remember was my brothers running across the road by the high school because they were going to the dairy, and being the annoying little sister, I chased them across the road but didn't look. And I remember them yelling at me and telling me to stop and put my shoes on the white line because cars were coming. Didn't work. I got clipped by a car outside Waitara High School and my brothers got hiding. So that is actually my first memory of netball.
Oh, that's an interesting first memory of netball for sure. I'm sure you remember that one. So as a young girl, though, I understand you went off to Auckland Girls Grammar and then over to Australia with Mum. What was the shift like for you, and how was that transition for you, as a young girl and with sports and stuff?
Oh, look, I don't think it's easy having to move countries and, I suppose, reground yourself and find your people as such. But that, I think, is the beauty about sport, because through netball, I found my people and I made friends, and gave me a space to belong in, which I love about netball, and probably netball more than softball, even though I played both over there. But it says a lot about the communities in sport and what it can bring to people's lives. It was not an easy move, and I spent, nearly 40 years in Australia. I know, nearly 30 years in Australia. So I must have enjoyed it because I stayed for a long time. But, there's something about Taranaki, and we always end up back home, I think.
100% agree. I was the same, spent plenty of years over there, and it's awesome over there, but there's no place like home. So obviously in netball, you've worked really, really hard over many years. Tell us a little bit about this journey and the various teams you've played or coached over the years.
Look, I was playing state netball and state softball at the same time, which was difficult for me to juggle in Aussie. And then I was 27 and suffered basically a career-ending knee injury, and fell into coaching. Wasn't really planned. And then I made my way through the coaching pathway. So I started off at club, very quickly got taken into the representative pathway in Sydney, then into the academy pathway, which then led to state coaching appointments. Coached Premier League in Sydney and won the inaugural Samsung title there, and then ended up back home. And it's interesting where I am now because I'm the head coach for Tonga Tala, and it was actually Netball New Zealand that connected me with Tonga. So when they were transferring my accreditation over from Netball Australia to New Zealand, Tonga were looking for a head coach. I approached Netball New Zealand, and look, I'm a big believer in fate, because for whatever reason, my paperwork happened to be on the top of someone's desk, and they thought we may have been a good fit, and they emailed me, and that's how I ended up with Tonga. And that was 6 years ago now, and it's been an incredible journey, and we are ranked 8th in the world, which we're very excited about. But their story is a really, really special one, bit of a Mighty Ducks story, but here we are. I'm exceptionally proud of Tonga, although I'm not Tongan. I absolutely feel like one. Now they've embraced me and love me like one of their own, and they've brought a lot to my life. So it's been an interesting cycle, but sport has always been there for me no matter what.
Wow, what an amazing journey. Like you said, through injury, you ended up in the coaching ranks. I understand you received like Coach of the Year over when you were coaching Penrith. Is that right? And you said that must have been pretty awesome for you.
Yeah, it was. I must have a thing for coaching underdogs. So I think coming into the last final weeks of rounds, we weren't even in the top 4 for a final spot. We were actually sitting 5th. And then I think we won 6 or 7 games in a row, including the grand final. All of those wins were from behind, because I'd come from behind wins. So, yeah, that kind of rocketed me up through the coaching ranks, got nominated and elected as New South Wales Coach of the Year. And that was really, really special for me to, I suppose, be recognised by your peers in that way, and in an environment where that's probably the pinnacle of netball. So, it was a proud moment for me.
Yeah, proud moment indeed. And you mentioned, I could hear it in the voice, just the way you spoke about Tonga and the opportunity you've had there to coach them, and you've coached them for some time now. What's special about that? About coaching Tonga, and I even heard you may have got an award from the Tongan King or something like that.
Yeah. So there's probably a journey to get to that. We recently received King's Medals, which is the highest honour that a Tongan can receive. So for a non-Tongan, I think it's extra special. The journey around that started in 2022, and it came just after Tonga had experienced the tsunami, the volcanic eruption in Tonga, and their country got shut down. It was horrific. And it was actually 2 months after that, we were supposed to compete in a tournament in Australia. And the Netball Australia were pushing for us to still put a team in, but I didn't have access to staff, resources, nothing. We didn't even have netball uniforms. So it was a bit of a Mighty Ducks story, really, because I also didn't have a netball team. So weirdly, I scoured the internet and social media and came across names that anyone that kind of resembled a Tongan name. I did some stalking, I suppose you could call it, and threw together this netball team that we had never met each other. It was a remarkable story, and we all met at the airport in Sydney, and we all came together and played in a Pacific Nations tournament. Now, we didn't have a world ranking at this point. We had completely dropped off the radar. And we went through and won that tournament undefeated. I think we did the same again that year. We qualified for the World Cup undefeated in Fiji, and it was the first time Tonga had ever played in a World Cup. Then we won another Pacific Netball Series undefeated, and all of a sudden Tonga found themselves ranked 7th in the world. So we went from no world ranking, not having a netball team, and not even knowing each other, and not having uniforms, to being 7th in the world and qualifying for our first World Cup. And it was a remarkable journey, and those women in that country are very special to me.
Wow, that's just such an amazing story and amazing journey, and an inspiration to a lot of, I suppose, young Tongan wahine in terms of that netball space as well, to know that there's such a competitive team out there on the national stage. So you've also held a position as general manager for Netball Taranaki, obviously since 2018, since you come home. How awesome has it been to be in that role and to be home in your home province to support the growth and development of the game here?
Oh, look, it has been really great for me to be able to give back to my sport locally, and where I'm from. It was, look, I won't sugarcoat it, it was a difficult adjustment, having lived in Australia for nearly 30 years and coming home to little old Taranaki and back to a town that didn't even have traffic lights. Like there was just a massive adjustment for me personally. But, you know, that's probably all part of the journey, and the way we contribute to other people's lives is how resilient we can be to be able to do that for other people. Netball and Taranaki is, you know, we've obviously had internationals that have come through here. We're very, very proud of the people that come from Taranaki. The netball space is looking really strong. It's so we're the highest participated sport in the region. We're the #1 female sport in the country, actually. So that's super exciting. And we're gaining ground. You know, the world has changed. Sport is not what it used to be. And I think you've got to move with the times. And that can be a difficult challenge for organisations as well. So, yeah, I'm still the GM of Netball Taranaki, have been since 2018, and it has been an incredible ride to see how much our sport has grown, but it's actually really exciting to see where it's about to go. There's been some massive changes in that space. You know, just the innovation around modified versions to get young people into sport. A couple of years ago, we made the decision, so we don't charge anybody that plays netball from year 1 to 4, just to encourage them to get out and play. It was about removing barriers for people, and cost is a big one for families. So we put that in place to, you know, hopefully encourage kids to get out and play. And that's something that we are super, super proud of.
Outstanding work. Great to see the game flourishing here. So just in terms, so obviously there's been a big rise too in men's netball and boys netball. So there's spaces and places for them as well. So tell us how that's all kind of developed over the years.
Yeah, so back in 2018, when under the Netball New Zealand regulations, boys could only play until they were 12, which was Future Ferns netball, and that made zero sense to me, because what happened to a young male once they had turned 12? And I just wasn't prepared to say to them that you can't play the sport that you choose and that we want to choose you too, you know, and it is about bringing experience to people's lives and then belonging. So that really bothered me. So over the years, we've continued to increase that age, irrespective of what Netball New Zealand were allowing at the time. It wasn't about them. It was actually about our community. So now boys can play in our women's premier teams. They're allowed 1 male per team up until the age of 18. We have several boys on the courts on Saturdays, which is super exciting to see. They are outstanding athletes, and I love it. And for the first time this year, we're actually putting an under-18 males team into nationals. So, you know, being able to provide them a pathway and a place to play netball has been really important to me and to us as an organisation. So it's exciting moving forward.
Wow, what an awesome story. Just loving your enthusiasm and your passion with about the sport of netball. I love it too. My wife's a netball fanatic. So, hey, we really appreciate the time you've taken to kore to us today on the show, and your amazing journey, all the accomplishments and the work that you do within our communities and within the game. Thank you for all that you do, and we look forward to seeing the continued growth of netball within Taranaki and the wider Aotearoa.
That's cool. Thanks for having me.